sorry, this is the Fed.
Good morning. This is Debbie Gilmer coming to you this morning from 41 Anthony Avenue. With me in the room is Letitia Hutman, Frank, Lisa Sturdivant, and Julie.
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
Pleased to have Ruth Pease here from the Department of Labor's Center for Workforce Research and Information, CWRI. We have some announcements and information that we'll be sharing after Ruth's presentation. I encourage you to type questions in the chat box as we're going along. Ruth is going to take questions as we go where folks are seeking clarification. And then once she gets onto the website, we'll be taking questions live then. And so without further ado, it's my great pleasure to welcome Ruth and turn it over to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm happy to.
I guess so.
Hello. Can people hear me? We have a thumbs up. Yep. Type yes.
Thumbs up?
Thumbs up if people can hear me.
There we go. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Good morning. My name's Ruth Pease. I work at the Center for Workforce Research and Information at the Department of Labor as a economic research analyst. And this morning what I'll be doing is presenting a few slides and then moving to a live demonstration of our website and how to navigate around the website to find various sources of information. So we can get started if you move to the first slide, please. And click. So first this morning, I'm going to present a short summary of current labor market and conditions. Then LMI tools or labor market information tools you can use, a live demonstration of the website, and conclude with a short presentation of one of our web pages, which is Maine Workers with Disabilities, where we have a collection of diverse statistics describing workers with disabilities in Maine. And finally, some time for questions and any concerns about accessing information that you may have. I'd like to say right away, though, the handouts for this presentation will follow along as I move with screenshots where I go on our website. So I'm hoping that after the program, anyone can reconstruct the steps that I took to find information, and if not, consider my contact information a resource for you, and you can reach out to me. I'm available to help you find any information that you can't find later on. I'd like to begin first with a description of our current labor market conditions. This on your screen is a graph of the unemployment rate in Maine and in the United States, Maine being the blue line and the United States being orange. At 4.1% in November, the unemployment rate in Maine is now lower than the 20-year average. So the graph shows on the left-hand side a pre-recession unemployment rate. You can see the rates rose quite a bit during the recession and have been subsiding steadily since then. Go ahead. At the same time, the share of population over age 16 who are working or actively seeking work is declining sharply. That is the definition of labor force participation, folks who are working or actively seeking work. And what this graph shows is that since 2005, labor force participation in both the United States, which is orange, the orange line, and in Maine, has been declining. You can see that in 2011, the participation rate in Maine kind of stabilized where that blue line flattens out, but since then it's been dropping sharply. Go ahead. And while the number of jobs in Maine is rising, the top graph shows the number of non-farm jobs. Again, you can see the pre-recession rate to the left, the fall in jobs during the recession, and a steady increase since then. The bottom graph compares Maine to the United States by indexing the level of jobs before the recession at 100% in 2008. You can see the drop and then the rise during the recovery. On that graph, the lower graph, the United States is shown in red, and you can see that the job growth, while the nation lost proportionally more jobs than Maine, the recovery has been faster and stronger. They have recovered and surpassed the pre-recession rate, while Maine's growth has been slower, and we haven't reached the pre-recession level of jobs. Go ahead. So the question, how can we have an unemployment rate at historical lows and yet declining labor force participation and slower job growth in the nation? Those are not necessarily conflicting statistics, but they're reflecting an underlying condition. Underlying those trends are Maine's population dynamics and age structure, which differs some from the United States. First, we've had virtually no population change for 6 years, and the deaths per year now outnumber the births. And net migration, which is folks moving into the state, has been near zero. So we've had virtually no population change. And compared to the nation, the share of older Mainers is large, while the share of younger people to replace them is small. Go ahead. So what does that mean for jobs and the labor market in Maine? This is a graph showing projected change in population between 2012 to 2022 by age group. And what it shows is that virtually all age groups, except for the ages 65 and over, are projected to experience declines between 2012 to 22. And so the total population is not expected to change, but the number of seniors is expected to rise significantly, while most of the prime working age population declines. Go ahead to the next slide. And this is important. This is the same graph, and over it I've superimposed a graph of participation rate. Remember, I talked about participation rate as being the share of population that's working or seeking work. And participation rates, which are shown on the scale to the right, rise, and peak participation is between 25 and 55 years of age. That's where that kind of haystack-shaped curve peaks there. The 25 to 54-year-old age group with the highest attachment to the labor force is shrinking, while the over 65-year-olds, which the participation rate falls off very sharply among that group, is the portion of the population that's growing. That significantly impacts the potential size of our workforce. Go ahead. So aging is constraining our growth potential. The tightening labor market will create a more competitive landscape for employers to attract workers. So as more folks exit the labor market through retirement, there are fewer young people to replace them. This should lead to rising wages if the laws of supply and demand hold, and a favorable situation for workers, particularly those entering the job market, and particularly those who have had a difficult time competing with other groups of workers under different circumstances. We're going to need every worker available to work. Labor market information describing current conditions and outlook can guide and inform employment or reemployment strategies, and those resources are what I'm going to show you today. We generally work in two types of workforce data. We have employment and wage data that describe occupations, which is what workers do, and they have their own set of coding. They're organized into families and then into detailed. Each detailed occupation has its own numerical code. Or we talk about industries, which is what firms or companies do. They have their own organizational system and structure, the coding called NAICS, which is North American Industry Code System. And mostly we talk about these two separate groups independently, but they do intersect, and we will be looking at one place where they intersect today with the employment locator. Go ahead. So what I will show you today is where to find information about current conditions. We're going to look at employment trends by region, unemployment rates, and employment and wages by occupation as they are currently. And you can change the slide. And also take a look at the outlook, which is our 10-year projections. Our current set of projections is 2012 to 2022. We formulate and update the projections every 2 years, and so this summer we'll be coming out with 2014 to 2024. Go ahead. So I'm going to segue now to live demonstration of our website, beginning with our home page. So if you can bear with us for a second.
While we're working on the technology, does anybody have any questions for Ruth at this point? Please feel free to type them in the boxes, in the chat box. I have a question, Ruth.
Yes.
Can you define non-work, and it said something about non-farm, and it said something about seasonal. Certainly there are.
Oh, okay, non-farm, right. We have a number of different ways of measuring employment. And one series is non-farm employment, and those are the statistics that come out monthly. And that's a graph showing those. And they are a set of employment statistics that don't include farm or agricultural wage workers, but they do include a number of other workers like student employment at universities and others that are not covered by UI tax law. And that brings up actually an excellent point that I forget too often to point out, which is that the statistics that we collect and present mostly have to do with covered workers those are wage and salary workers that are covered by unemployment insurance law. So most all of our statistics don't include self-employed folks.
Okay.
Or other people. That's the largest group of people not covered by UI law, but there are others. So, okay, we're live here. We're looking at the browser of Firefox, and the easiest way to find our website is to type in CWRI and hit enter. And what will come up is CWRI Maine. That's our web. That's us. We're connecting, and there it is. This is our home page. On the handout and in the slide that we just left is the URL address, which is you can see at the top of the screen, www.maine.gov/labor/CWRI. So this is our home page, and you can find information in a number of different ways here. You can use the main menu to find information by category. You can use the Find It box over here to find information by subject. Our home page also has, we have recent updates, so anything that's been recently posted or presented is listed here. And then down here, I'm going to just increase the sizes a little bit if I can figure out how to do it.
You can do it from bigger on here.
Okay. All right. An economic snapshot. So if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see a graph that looks very familiar because I was... Yeah.
Except the captioning's gone.
the unemployment labor force and latest employment statistics, all found on the home page. Today, in talking about current conditions, I'm going to start over here on the left-hand menu under Interactive Data Tools with the Industry, Employment, and Wages, and I'm going to click on that. And I want to say that most of our data on the website is presented using a visualization software called Tableau, which is very powerful and versatile, but has one major drawback, and that is that it is not read by screen readers, which means that the interactive tables that I'm going to be showing today are not accessible. The way that we address that is to have all of the data in our tables available for download up here in Excel. So you can see under the title here, Quarterly and Annual Industry, Employment and Wages, it says View Entire Data Set as a Spreadsheet, and you can pick a topic, pick a region there. The files are divided because it's a very large data file. This morning, if we just, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to choose, if you're looking for local information, I would start by clicking on the tab here that says Labor Market Area. It's the third tab. And clicking on that. And what that brings you to is an interactive table where you can choose your labor market area over to the left here. So if I unclick all, and then I can choose. I can choose more than one if I'd like. Just click them all again. So instead, I'm going to click here, Augusta Micro. And then I can also tailor my output by choosing a date range here. So if I want to be looking, you can see if you use the slider here, you can choose a date range. The data here goes all the way back to 2000. If you slide it all the way out, I'm gonna stop here at about 2010. You can look at quarterly data, or you can look at annual data. So I'm going to click Annual. And you can also choose what kind of employment you're looking for by ownership. So it defaults to private. You can look at government, federal, local, or state. You can click Total. And then over here, you can select a sector. So if I scroll down right here, you can see that what's listed here is for the year 2014 in Augusta. It's listing all industries, beginning with total all industries, and then the industry sector down here. If I want to look at information over time, though, I might be interested in just the top line. So I'm going to select a sector. I'm going to select total all industries. I'm going to select the most general available under each category, so 2 digits and total all industries. And then what I get is a much simpler graph here. And here, these years reflect the date range that I selected. So what I'm looking at now is a range of employment and wages from 2010 to 2014 in the Augusta micro region. And you can see it has the number of establishments, so the number of businesses, the average employment by year, the total wages paid, and the average weekly wage paid. And if you're a visual person, you might want to look at this in a graph form. So if you move up here under Display and click Graph, you can see more easily what's been happening over the last 4 or 5 years. So this would be 2010, and this would be 2014 annual. You can see that the growth in Augusta Micro has been steadily upward. And you can look at that. You could compare areas. So if I wanted to compare Augusta and Bangor, I could click Bangor too. See what happens here, though. Bangor is so much larger than Augusta that the scale changes and the lines really flatten out. If I wanted to look at Bangor by itself, there. I can unclick Augusta. So that gives you quarterly employment and wages. Let me just show you. I clicked annual so that we would have a smooth trend line. If I click quarterly, you're going to see seasonal variation, which is evident, which is a fact of life in pretty much any region in Maine, particularly on the coast. But you can see in this up and down line the seasonal variation so by quarter. So this is quarter 3 where employment tends to be higher. The lower tends to be quarter 1, and year by year. You can still see the upward trend, but it's harder to detect, so I suggest that you stick with the annual, and you can see really sort of what the general trend is. So that will give you an idea by industry of what's happening in your region. Right now, I'm going to go back to our home page to take you to a different set of statistics, the unemployment rates. To find these, I'm going to go about halfway down on the left-hand side under unemployment and labor force statistics. Click on that. You see a familiar graph. We were just looking at this. This is Maine in the United States. In this data series, in order to look for local information, you use these tabs across the top. So I'm under the green box that says How to Export Charts. There's 2 tabs. Click on the right-hand tab that says County, LMA, City or Town. Ooh, see? This is not seasonally adjusted information, so you can see this is, again, Maine in the United States, but not seasonally adjusted, and you can see all the seasonal movement. Also, comparing Maine to the United States, you can see how much more seasonal and what a different seasonal pattern Maine has than the United States. If we want to look at a local area, though, we don't want to look at the United States anymore, so I'm going to, under Geography, unclick U.S. I might want to keep the state in there just as comparison, but let's look at labor market areas. So I'm going to go down here and click labor market area, and that gives me a number of choices lower down. So again, if I want to stick with Augusta Micro for a minute, I click Maine and Augusta Micro. All right, let's see. Now we're looking at 2 lines here. Oops, sorry about that. Let's see if I can refresh. Okay, let's unclick. Okay. See if I can get this back. I'm not sure exactly what I did there, but let's get Maine and Augusta back. All right, I'm not sure. Let me do this. We switch to annual for a minute. Graph or table. I'm just going to back out of this and see if I will reset the graph. No.
This is fascinating.
Well, this is fascinating because this hasn't happened to me before.
I mean the information. I don't mean the troubles with the table.
Okay. Let's see. Problem is the scale. Let's see if I hit. On that, what happens?
It's all below the...
Somebody suggests changing the date range.
Changing the date range. Well, the date range would certainly pull us, well, you went on that far back. No. Well, let's see. If only we had more. Let's see, I think I was hovering. Well, I'm not sure how to fix this. All right, I'm going to do this. Bear with me here.
Control L, or Control on your keyboard and scroll your mouse zooms in and out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I will try that. Thank you, whoever made that fix it. All right, let's reset here. Yeah.
If you have a wheel in the
Got it. All right, so I'm going to uncheck the U.S. Check labor market. I'm going to stay away from that graph area.
There we go.
All right, so again, you're seeing the seasonal variation in Augusta. You can see that the unemployment rate has typically been lower than the state. That lighter line, that's Augusta. If I change the time period from monthly to annual, you see it smooths out. You can see the peak in 2009 and the rate going down since then. If there were people in the room, I would ask why anybody thought that the unemployment rate in the Augusta micro was lower than the state. And the answer is state government, which tends to be a stabilizing effect and also somewhat counter-cyclical, so that when times are bad, there are many functions in state government where employment actually increases to help folks that are struggling. So that is long-winded and demonstration of how to find. You can also look at rates by city or town, but I will tell you that those are largely modeled. So I would suggest that you stay with a slightly larger geography than city or town level, although we do publish that all. So those are unemployment rates. You can also look at different labor force statistics. You can look at the size of the labor force, which of course, because it's numerical rather than a rate, if you look at Maine and Augusta at the same time, you've got two pretty flat lines. You'd want to get rid of the state to look at the size of, to look at the participation rate, which is pretty wildly varying. Okay, I'm sorry, I will speak up. Returning to home, the last of the current condition pages that I'd like to demonstrate is the occupational employment and wage page. We're switching gears here. We have been talking about industry. First we talked about industry employment trends, then we talked about unemployment rates, which has to do with resident population, and now that we're talking about occupational employment and wages, which is by occupation, by what workers do rather than by industry. To begin with, let's look at this table. The occupations are organized by families here, and it will give you an estimated number in any category. It gives you the average wage. So overall, the average wage for all occupations in 2014 was $20.26. It gives you the different percentiles and the median wage as well. If we were, again, interested in perhaps the Augusta area, or maybe by county, we could look at, choose a different geography over here. If I choose county, this time it's a two-step. I need to click apply. And I'm going to leave this to do a comparison of wages by county. I'm going to use all counties clicked. But I don't want to, I can't compare all categories in all counties. That's too complicated. So I'm going to go up to here to select occupation, and I'm going to uncheck all and instead check total all occupations. Okay. And then what is displayed here is the estimated employment in all by county. You've got the statewide as the top line, but then by county. The average wage you can see in the second column, there's a variation. And also the medians, all the wage categories will vary by county. So I think that it's easier to take a look at this in the graph. So if I go up here and click graph, oh, I know why it's not doing it. I tried to do this last time. It's not doing, I'm talking to myself, but it's not doing this because I haven't chosen an occupation. I'm going to choose a specific occupation here to demonstrate this. So I'm going to go and under architecture and engineering, I'm going to choose architectural and civil drafters. Oops. Come back. And then what you see displayed is a comparison of architects and civil drafters by county. You also see a link down below to, you can go out to ONET to check out more detail about that occupation. And if I click on graph here, you can see a graphical juxtaposition of both wages and estimated employment. And what you're looking at, see, it's only showing for 4 counties, Cumberland, Hancock, Penobscot, New York, because those are the only counties with any number of that type of occupation. But you can see that there's a wage range here. In Penobscot County pays about a little over $28 an hour. In Cumberland County, the average wage is $36, $34. You can see graphically what the differences are. Hancock County, and the highest paid is York County. If there are people in the room, I would ask if there was any idea why that was, and that has to do with Kittery, with the Naval Shipyard.
Oh.
You see the average wage in Maine is in the middle there, because it's an average, $32.87, and it's up at the top part of the graph because it reflects the number of people in that occupation, the vertical scale. So that's how you use this resource. So you can see, you can choose any, you have to know a little bit about how occupations are classified in order to first select the group and then select a detailed occupation.
So without putting you on the spot, where would the vast majority of folks in the audience work for not-for-profit, community-based agencies serving folks with disabilities, helping them to get jobs?
Okay.
Where would, what?
Well, it doesn't matter where they work. It matters what sort of occupation their clients are interested in.
No, I know. I'm just trying to see.
Okay.
Where they would come in on
how they might use this?
Or how they might be classified.
in their
Okay, all right. So let's see.
Health.
So it might be healthcare supported, also might be, so job counselors, let's see. I would look under education, training, and library.
Okay.
Oh.
Does anybody
Career
in the
technical.
audience fill out those forms that employers get, and know what category you're in?
Well, because I am not an expert at this, I almost always go out to ONET and type in job counselor and get an idea of where in the classification they land.
Wow.
So that's what I would do.
So if you don't know.
So if you don't know, that's an easy reference.
Okay.
That's an easy reference. So I'm going to switch gears here and talk about outlook and talk about projections and what anticipated conditions are. So let's see. I just did that too fast. From the home page, on the top, on the main menu, if you drop down to Job Outlook and click on that link, that will bring you to the Job Outlook home page. On this page is a number of different resources that we're going to look at. We're going to look at 4 or 5 of them. But we also have a publication that broadly describes the projections, and you can download that over to in this box to the right. So it opens to the occupation page, and if we just take a look at the table, I want to show you the information that's available. So we've got the 2012 employment, and then the projected employment. So the total for all occupations, I'm kind of afraid to put my cursor on it. The employment in 2012 was 654,000. The projection was 669.7. net growth of 15,000 anticipated. That's pretty slow growth rate. That's only 2.3%. Now, we talk a lot about net growth, growth and decline in industries and occupations, but for job counselors, the more important statistic is annual growth, annual openings. And the reason for that is if you take a look at this, the first this column here talks about annual growth openings. That's how many openings we anticipate every year due to net growth in jobs. Since this is rather low because our growth rate's rather low. But if you look at the next one, which is the annual replacement openings, those are the number of jobs we anticipate due to replacement of incumbent workers. And that is where most of the opportunity is for job seekers, and also where the demand is from employers. So the total annual openings for job counselors is really a much more important statistic in many ways than net growth or net change in jobs, because that is how we measure demand.
Makes sense.
So again, you can look for specific occupations by choosing a group. And then, and if I just chose arts, design, and entertainment occupations, and you've got them all listed here. Or you could select a detailed occupation. Let's see. And if I do so, let's see, this is probably not the most appropriate. Let's drop down to community social services.
Probably what we're under.
Yeah, counselors. Let's see, is there
Social
Rehabilitation
service.
counselors.
rehab counselors? There we go, rehab counselors. Okay. So for rehab counselors, the employment in 2012 was 433. The projected employment is 480, so a growth rate of about 11%. That's a higher growth rate than average. Total annual openings of 14. Now this is kind of an interesting example because this would be considered a high growth occupation, but not high demand occupation, because the threshold for high demand is 20 annual openings per year, and this has 14. So when we get to looking at the high wage and demand jobs, rehab counselors will not be on that list because it doesn't meet the threshold for total annual openings. It would meet the threshold for median wage, however, because the median wage you see over here was $17.42 in 2013, and that is above the average. So you can search for the outlook by occupation using this tab, or we can use this next tab and look at growing or declining occupations. And this you can look at graphically, or you can look at it in table view. You can choose how many occupations you want to look at once. You can sort them by the usual education required for entry. And you can also do different rankings. This is largest annual openings, but you can also look at growth rate or job loss. So that's some research you can do using that table there. In this one, even though it opens to the graph, I actually like the table view because it gives you more information. So like for cashiers, it'll give you the usual education required. If I wanted to look at only occupations that required a high school diploma or less, I could go over here and specify that, and you would get only those occupations. It also gives you the employment and the projection and the annual growth rates and so forth. Again, down at the bottom, I'm sure this is true. No, on this one it doesn't have a link to own it.
This is good.
It is fascinating.
Okay, high wage and demand is the next one I was going to show, and that is the fifth, 6th tab across, high wage and demand, and I talked about that a little bit already. These are occupations that meet two different thresholds. One is, and the notes are here if you're interested, but the high wage part is that the median wage is higher than the median for all occupations. And then the second threshold is that it has the occupations have at least 20 openings, annual openings projected. So you can alphabetize by title. You can sort by education requirement. So if you have somebody that's got some post-secondary education, you can only look at those. Again, you can switch to a table view that will give you a little bit more information. A word about the wages. The wages attached to these projections, this projections information, were the latest available when the projections were published. So these use the 2013 wages, even though 2014 are available. So high wage and demand. And finally, I'd like to show you the next tab to the left is occupation by industry. This is where the two worlds collide, occupations and industries. This is a resource that you can use if you've got somebody that's established in an occupation but wants to work in a different setting, say. So I'm going to use as an example the one that I used in the handout, which is a nurse. So I'm going to select over here healthcare practitioners and technical, and I'm going to go down, it's under registered, so it's under R, down here. Oops. And I'm going to click registered nurses. And what this does is it uses staffing patterns to create a list of industries where nurses are employed. So these are industries where nurses tend to be employed, and they're ranked by the percentage. So the industry that, not surprisingly, employs the highest percentage of nurses is hospitals, followed by ambulatory health care, so doctor's offices, and then nursing homes. But you also have some other industries that maybe you hadn't thought of. So educational services, federal government employment, admin and support services, and insurance carriers and related activities, management of companies. They employ smaller shares of nurses, but still nurses work in those settings. So if you're working with somebody with a known occupation, you can specify it and take a look and see where those, in what context those folks might be able to look for a different or new job.
If I could just interject, this
Sure.
is an incredibly relevant example of why in Discovering Personal Genius we use broader themes and never job descriptions or job titles, because there are many, often tens and hundreds of industries or businesses that employ folks with a certain set of skills or interests.
Yep.
So very relevant here. This might be a resource to be using when you're thinking about, after you've identified the themes in Discovery, where those jobs might take place.
And the other thing that it's useful for is that when you're using our employer locator, which is where I'm going next, that employers are classified, remember, by industry, and you're working with folks that are maybe identifying by occupation. So this allows you to say, okay, I have a person here who's has a nursing certification, but would like to get out of maybe primary care and into a different setting. So So maybe then I go to the employer locator and see what potential employers might be in his or her area. So I'm going to return to our home page and direct you to the employer locator. This is found under Interactive Data Tools. Over on the left here, I'm going to click Employer Locator. We've got two variations of this out there. One of them requires a keyword that would be either a industry and occupation or any other keyword, and that brings you right out to the Career One-Stop tool. And you scroll down and you can see search by business name, industry, or occupation. And if I type in nurse, it gives me a few choices which I can choose or not choose. And then if I choose location, because this is the national site, it's going to say, give me all sorts of Augustas. And if I choose Augusta, Maine, and then hit search, this starts out really broad. The thing that I like about it is that it's got a distance, uses a distance and a radius, so that it will give you suggestions that might be outside of Augusta proper, but still within commuting distance. But you're going to want to filter this in order to get down to something more usable than 1,700 returns. So the first thing I do is to take a look at the distance and hit the downward, the downward arrow. Let's see if this is going to, this has tripped me up before. Let's see.
Go back?
Yeah, let me just see if I can go back. If you download, it wants you to. Let me go back. Okay. So I'm going to hit the downward arrow again and see what happens. It shouldn't, this is not happening to me the other day. All right, let's see. 2A, 3, CCB. See if they think I'm a real person. Yes. Success. All right. This is not easy with this. Sorry about this with this. Okay, so I hit the downward arrow on distance, and that's going to give me the closest ones first. So that's one cut. The second cut is you can filter by a number of different, by description. That would be using keywords. You can filter by industry. Since we just came from industry, I'm going to, for the sake of example, I'm going to click on colleges and universities. See if this is a person that would like to move from a clinical setting to maybe an educational setting to look at, and that cuts down the list of possibilities quite a bit, from down to 52 businesses for nurse in or near Augusta, Maine, and it lists a number of different employers, all colleges and universities, because that's what we specified, in the Augusta area or close by. You can narrow it down further by city. You can narrow it if firm size is important to you by firm size over here. You can click on a business name and get information about that business, address, phone number. Sometimes there's a contact name. So again, these are prospects. These are names of businesses who might employ workers of the type that you specified and could be used as, to develop a list of prospective employers. So that's how you use the employer locator if you've got a keyword, an industry, or an occupation. We can also search by employers. If you click on the second tab here, if you don't want to use a keyword, but you just want to search by location, do a general search either with the business name or by location. You can use the second tab here. You can leave the employer name blank and come down here and choose by county. I specify Kennebec. I can search for, I can specify city in Kennebec, so I can specify Augusta. Again, this is only going to return me businesses that say they're located in Augusta, so that's one limitation. And you can get a general list of employers in Augusta this way. You can filter by size. You can also put in an employer name. One thing I will say about the employer locator, which is this is a licensed, this is a licensed database that we purchase, and so unlike the other interactive tables, we don't have a database or a spreadsheet that you can just download with everything. So there are limits to the number of employers you can download at a single time and so forth. But this is not a perfect tool, but the best tool we've got for connecting job seekers with potential employers by area or industry. And so I want to leave some time for questions. So I just want to show you where to find, in closing, where to find the workers with disabilities statistics page. I'm going to click on data under the main menu, and then I am going to click on that again. And then I'm going to look down in here under workers with disabilities, under data, you can click on that. This is going to be updated shortly with more recent ACS data. But I just wanted to show you how it's organized. The last time this was published on paper was 2012. That document is available for download, or all the data is available on the Excel spreadsheet and all the notes in a Word document. The statistics are organized by topic across the top here: age, county, disability type. Much of the data comes from the American Community Service, but we also have some program data over towards the end, some national SSDI, SSA programs. Let's see if we take a look at that. Shows you Maine adults aged 18 to 64, the enrollment is, what the overlap is. It also has to do with job seekers in our Career Center. Rehab services data, and Maine Care. And the purpose of this site was to bring together diverse statistics. They're all providing a slightly different snapshot of the population of adults with disabilities in Maine, and just to provide a single, kind of one-stop resource. And now I will stop talking and see if I can answer a few questions before we run out of time.
Okay, thank you. That was fascinating. By a show of hands, if people remember how to raise your hand, have people used this site before? A couple people. Okay, thanks. We have one question, Ruth.
Yep.
When looking for something specific and not easily finding the correct title, someone mentioned ONET. I've been in there, but it's pretty big and overwhelming. Can you explain how you might get a title from ONET to use it to search for something here?
Let me just go back to, well, let's see. I could open a new tab. So, ONET. Okay, occupation quick search up here. So if I, oops, it's good if you can type. If I'm looking for somebody I'm interested in surveyors, right here, you can, surveying technicians, it gives you usually a range of things that your keyword might correspond to. So you can take a look at surveyors. It's what it doesn't do is tell you what family it's in, which is set. You can see the first two digits are the family that you would find it under. So that's not great. I'm not sure where you could find that actually. But what I would then do is go back to the occupational, one of the occupational resources where you need this kind of thing. Okay. So if you go back to occupation and wages and look for the group 17, it's still not going to help you very much. I think you're going to have to then do an if you don't know what family
Advanced search internet.
Oh, can you?
No.
Okay, that's great. Advanced search. This one.
Yeah.
Skill search.
No, that might be helpful. Well, I'm looking at the time, and we've got a number of things we've got to talk about before we log off. Ruth, this has been fabulous, and maybe we'll have you come back and do sort of the next step using ONET and other sources. Thank you very much. And I'll continue to monitor for questions, but just wanted to let folks know that Discovering Personal Genius is full for the end of the month. If you are registered, don't forget the webinar, which is next Friday. Please RSVP to Joyce. We have openings in the Job Coach credential. There are still a few openings in the ACRE course, but that's filling up very quickly for the middle of March. We will be unveiling a new ACRE credential course with ICI in Boston and using the College of Employment Supports. It's a hybrid online and webinar and assignments. We should have information out about that later this month with a potential for start in early to mid-March. It would take about 3 months to complete that online course. February 11th, Corey Smith will be in Maine. We'll be doing the first kickoff of the Community of Practice and Discovering Personal Genius in Bangor. We'll be sending out those invites hopefully next week. We'll be broadcasting, since he's going to be here, we'll be broadcasting the February webinar from Bangor on Discovery while we have Corey in town. Lisa, Letitia, Frank, anything else?
For people who have signed up, tomorrow is the first day of the Navigator program through Maine Medical Center, so that's tomorrow in Bangor. And for other people, those sessions I think are pretty much full between now and June. We will be working with Maine Medical Center to again, starting in July, to offer those 6 trainings. So if you didn't get into one of these sessions, be looking for that again later in the spring of 2016 for the summer and fall. But again, for those people who have signed up tomorrow, the training's in Bangor. And then, as Deb mentioned, we will be doing these 5 communities of practice on career planning. First one is February 11th. It's going to be, I think it's 1 to 5 in Bangor at the Career Center. So we'll be getting out a save the date next week for anybody in the Bangor or Washington County or North area who can join us for the afternoon. It is also for VR counselors and other people who have gone through DPG training, and Corey will be leading that afternoon. And look for those to be happening in Augusta, Lewiston, and Portland as we move forward with March through November scheduling. So again, upcoming support and training around DPG.
Seeing no other questions, nothing else here. I want to again thank Ruth from CWRI and your attention today, and we'll see you soon. Thank you and take care. Joyce has already sent out the link to the evaluation, and attached was Ruth's presentation in a PDF form with the screenshots for what she showed us, and her contact information, which is on one of the slides. Have a great day. Thanks.